So the only way to get your housing payment fixed and know what it's going to be is to purchase. The other piece is, when you're renting, the only person you're benefiting is, or the only thing you're benefiting is your landlord's investment strategy, not your own investment strategy, right? So, tell us, buying, what does that do for you as a homeowner? I mean, what does that give you?
Several things. First of all, it puts you on the path to generational wealth. Let's face it, once again, I mean, this is New York City, and it's one of also the immigrant capitals of the world. And what happens is we have people that come here and they work super hard and they save their money and they get their salaries together and they buy a piece of property. And within about 10 years, that piece of property has doubled in value. So if you've bought, and I tell this story when my parents are immigrants, and when they first came to this country in the 80s, they bought their first home for $89,000.
Unbelievable.
Sold it back in the early 2000s for about $600K.
Generational wealth.
I mean, generational wealth.
What do they do with that money, or what will they do with that money ultimately?
Invest, reinvest. You reinvest into another, because at the end of the day now, an investment property, which because you're the mortgage guru, you need 20% down. It's virtually impossible as just a renter to save that type of cash. Yeah. But if you sell and you rebuy, you're able to buy 2 multi-units, or even if you buy one, you can now buy a commercial multi-unit with $600K, cash, or you could buy 2 different properties and manage the risk that way as well.
Yeah.
Because you could go to 2 different areas and say, I could get this rent for this area and this rent for that area. Renting multi-family, first and foremost, FHA buyers, get this done. Get your first property, get a multi-family. I know that the one family has the glitz and the glam, and I know that it has the appearance of the privacy and things like that, and you don't have to deal with tenants. But when you're owning a multi-unit in a city like New York, even I would go as far to say Miami, Los Angeles, major cities, Chicago, where rent is continuing to increase, you have your equity increasing, and at the same time you have rent increasing. I'll break down, just to give you guys some figures here. Let's say you buy $1 million property on an FHA loan. All in, I would say you would have a mortgage into mid-5s, right?
Yeah, low to mid-5.
Low to mid-5s. One thing I say to people, you want to get a higher number of bedrooms when you're buying. The catch with that is that those, a house with a higher number of bedrooms is going to cost more. What you need to do is sit down with your mortgage professional and you need to calculate the income versus the mortgage. So if you've got a mortgage, I'll give you a perfect example of how this works. If you've got a mortgage around $5,500 and you're renting, right now the average 3-bedroom in New York City is going anywhere between $2,500 to $2,800 a month.
Wow.
So you do the math on how much you're saving if you were to buy a multifamily that had a 3-bedroom rental. You're basically coming out of your pocket under $3,000 for a mortgage.
Well, you're paying for your investment strategy.
Absolutely.
Rather than your landlord's investment strategy, and you're only paying what you would have paid if you continued to rent. So what you're saying is it is extremely affordable for individuals to purchase these large 2-family properties.
Extremely affordable.
And people might be scared about it, but it's affordable, it's doable. We've worked with many clients together.
We have.
And we have working with some clients right now as well that are doing this and are doing the same thing and are taking advantage of that. Let me ask you this. What would be your guidance to someone who is looking to buy a home? What is the first thing that you tell your clients they need to do?
The first thing out of my mouth is that we're shopping and we're in a market, okay? And I don't dictate and you don't dictate. Your preferences dictate. So things like you have to figure out what it is that you definitely want. You have a list of must-haves, and then you have a list of, okay, I can compromise on this, okay? So for your first home, I think it's very important that if you need parking, you should be able to compromise on the fact that a house doesn't have a garage. You can get a house with a driveway, a carport. There are things to save money and still have the luxury of parking in New York. Because in New York City, parking is a luxury.
Yeah, and what we're talking about here is, Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens,
Correct.
right in that area.
Correct.
So, okay.
You see, like in Long Island, in upstate and things like that, it's kind of a given that that already comes
You'll have
with
that
it.
driveway, the garage,
Correct.
etc. Yeah.
So, but your preferences is really what drives where we're gonna go. So as a buyer, for example, your preference of what you need, if you need a 3-car garage and this is your first house and you absolutely need a 3-car garage, and I've had people that do need that, but they need it for a valid reason, not just for the luxury of having that. Meaning, if you need a 3-car garage because you need it for storage for your business and you want to save money on a storage unit and you're going to use that garage and things like that, by all means, go ahead and do it. But you really need to figure out what is your must-haves and what's not. The things that will determine the price of a house are things like parking, separated versus attached, areas, size of the house, number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, separate outside entrances, but the number one factor of deciding, pricing on a house and things like that, and you know this as much as I know this, area.
Absolutely.
Because housing prices go by the comps.
100%. And by speaking with a real estate professional, you can understand what the comparable sales in that area
Correct.
are that you're looking to buy within. So